Now I'm joined by senior writer at the Fin Review, Aaron Patrick. Thanks so much for being here in studio. Now, you had the Fin Review Summit today. There were a lot of high-profile senior business chiefs there. What were their concerns in the room about how aggressively Philip Lowe is raising interest rates, and also the sentiment in terms of, were many of them concerned that we might be heading into a recession? I know Jim Chalmers has said he doesn't think we're going to go into a recession, but we are seeing those reports, and we are seeing, companies like Atlassian today making 500 staff redundant.
Definitely the prospect of recession is one that really terrifies Australian business, and I'm sure that was on the minds of many of the business leaders we had in the room today. I think probably the view is that they feel it's a little bit early, certainly today's to know if it's going to happen. And everyone's looking very closely at the US and Europe to see if they fall into recession. But today's interest rate increase isn't going to help. Not going to help at all.
10th, look, there's a lot of families who are going to be struggling to pay their mortgages. And not even talking about the power price rises as well.
Well, that's right, and that's going to flow through into all other parts of business, from everything from retail spending to purchase of automobiles, to all kinds of consumer spending, to holidays, to travel, and it goes right across the economy. So business is very anxious, and of course, if the economy goes into a significant downturn, they're going to have to start firing people, and that's going to add to the problem.
Now, in another topic, a news poll in the Australian newspaper today shows support for The Voice appears to be falling. Why do you think this is slipping?
Because Australians are thinking about this, and they're worried about what could happen. Because the government won't explain explicitly what could happen, the fears of what's called a third chamber, I think, are worrying many Australians. I think as a country, we're incredibly sympathetic towards what's happened to our Indigenous citizens, but I think we're naturally concerned about creating a new layer of politics and government. And I think, we've got a chamber at the moment which is for Indigenous Australians. It's called the House of Representatives and the Senate. And we've got some great Indigenous representatives in both. So I think Australians are starting to get a little bit concerned about how this could mess with our government.
Now, we've been talking a lot on this show and in the news about the Adelaide Writers' Week, and of course Louise Adler, has controversially featured several panels that only have the Palestinian point of view without any other debate, no one representing Israel at all. Now, you were actually invited to participate in this Writers' Week, but then disinvited, it seems. What happened?
Well, I thought I was going to be invited. Because Louise Adler, who had asked me years ago to write a book for her, expressed a lot of interest in a book that I published last year.
On Malcolm Turnbull, called Ego, very critical book on him.
Yeah, it debuted on this show, on your show.
Yes.
And so I was under the impression that Louise was very keen to have me go and speak at the Writers' Festival. And then when the book came out, suddenly relations became extremely frosty. And I thought, look, the Writers' Week promotes itself as believing in truth and being open to all ideas. So why not be open to ideas like mine, where I'm putting forward arguing that Malcolm Turnbull contributed to the loss of the Morrison government? What's wrong with hearing about that? And instead, what we've got is Louise Adler running a group for basically her friends and allies in the leftist media.
Yeah, and it only represents her point of view, her world outlook. I mean, this Writers' Week was meant to be about debate, but there is no debate.
Well, also, there is particularly no debate within the Writers' Week, within the people who have the privilege of that platform. And this is not a private organisation. They receive funding from taxpayer funding from the South Australian government. So, look, I'm getting, my book isn't a right-wing book. It isn't a left-wing book. I'm trying to do something really objective.
It's an investigative journalist book. It's investigating what role Malcolm Turnbull played in the many scandals that besieged the Morrison government.
Yeah, and well, thank you. And I think that's what I set out to do. But I guess the narrative doesn't correspond to what is, the argument among certain people that everyone involved, particularly in the Liberal government, were bad people. I try and be fair and objective. And I should say, I'm getting sued by Senator Linda Reynolds about the book. She didn't like it, so it's upset people on the right too. And so I would say to people like Louise Adler, and you've got the Sydney Writers' Festival coming out soon too, they won't have people like me. It's a lot of writers from The Guardian and Nine.
You know what? I think we need to set up another writers' festival for independent, for centrist writers, for genuine debate and different points of view. We should set it up, Aaron.
We should. You and I, Sharri, both authors, I'll be there.
Excellent. Thank you so much for your time.